So do you accumulate sense of pressure in the lower back as you stand for longer periods or sit for longer times during the day? This video will address that kind of lower back strain through a more comprehensive, soft understanding of what the core is. So sometimes when we have lower back pain, people tell you just you need to get a stronger core. But doing crunches or planking it out forever doesn't necessarily strengthen your core in a way that's helpful. So today we will understand the core as a pressure system and hopefully find ways for you to become more aware of how your pelvic positioning, how you hold your breath can contribute to the stress in the lower back and how you can relieve that. Okay, so let's start lying on our backs with the knees bent. And for a lot of us with low back pain, even just lying with legs straight, you can maybe see that when I bend the knees, the lower back softens into the ground a little bit more. And when we extend the legs, there's like a bit more arch I can place my hand through. So we're gonna start with the knees bent. And we're going to bring one hand onto belly, one hand onto heart. And find the right distance so you don't have to strain in any way through the legs. And at first we're just going to breathe into the belly. So as you inhale, the belly softens. Maybe there's a bit of an expansion through the belly. And as I exhale, the belly releases back towards the spine. And obviously the lungs are in my upper chest cavity. Diaphragm is there. And the lungs are getting that vacuum through which we can inhale, in this case, by just moving the diaphragm down. That pushes the organs down. Organs have nowhere to go, so they pop forward. Good. Let's see if we can turn it the other way around. So I'm going to hold my belly a little bit. That means almost like if you think about coughing or laughing. So those are the TAs, or the transverse abdominals. I want to get that gentle feeling of holding or the sustained laughter as you inhale. So that means the pressure change this time doesn't move through the belly or into the organs. Because I'm holding here, the pressure moves more into the side ribs, or the chest cavity expands. And therefore, we create the vacuum which lets the breath in. Good. And the last kind of pathway that we will breathe is we'll try to keep the front body as it is. So feeling of coughing with the feeling of maybe hugging the ribs a little bit in, so this part doesn't really change, but as we breathe, it's almost like I'm breathing my lower back into the ground. And as I exhale, the lower back comes off of the ground a little bit more. It's probably a little bit hard to see, but if you can also place like a towel or something underneath your lower back, so that you have a bit more feedback. It's more like pressing the lower back into the towel. And other things will also move, but we're trying to get this feeling of breathing into the back. We'll come back to that in just a second, but for now, let's loosen up a little bit. And we're going to think about circling the hips here for a moment. So you can also close your eyes. If you're like, what, circling the hips? I don't know how that's supposed to go. You can think about drawing a circle with your pubic bone to the side, up, to the left, and down. You might have done this in a tabletop position before in a yoga class. You can also go the other way around. You can exaggerate it. You can keep it super soft. You're just becoming aware of the fact that you can move your pelvis in relationship to the spine. You can also press into the feet, play with that. That might also move the circle. Okay, so almost like a massage for the lower back. Nice. And then let's hug the knees in towards the chest. Nothing extreme yet. So let's circle the knees, further massaging the lower back or the area of the sacrum. It's that triangular bone in between the two hip halves. Good. And then you probably notice when you move your knees in towards the chest, the lower back flattens onto the ground. So that natural curve that we were talking about kind of goes away a little bit. We're not trying to press the lower back into the ground, but for now, can also keep the hands here to see, am I lifting my pelvis up? Because that's what we want to avoid for now. So we're going to inhale here. And as you exhale, you can tap one tippy toe onto the ground and then inhale, come back up. You can also have one hand onto the lower back, one hand onto the belly. And do this a few times. You can inhale back to center, exhale one foot down, inhale center, and exhale the other. We're not trying to do a crazy ab exercise, but we're super aware of the fact that when the leg reaches forward, especially when you extend the leg, you might feel that the lower back comes off the ground. I'm not saying getting the lower back off the ground is a bad thing, but for now, just noticing how do I need to organize my core and my pelvis, maybe also my breath, to keep this broadening or widening through the pelvis. Let's do two more. Inhale, center. Exhale, one foot taps. Inhale, center. Exhale, the other foot taps. Good. Inhale, both in. And then exhale, let's bring the feet as wide as the mat, knees knocking in for just a moment. You can let the belly soften. Deep breath in. And a breath out. Good. Let's roll over this side and come into a child's pose for a moment. So you can have the knees a little bit wider. I know for some of us, child's pose with connection between belly and thigh is relatively difficult, depending on how your hip sockets are shaped. Some people like to widen the knees a little bit, if possible, having some connection between the thigh and the belly. And you can release your forehead onto the ground, have a block. I'm going to stack some hands or fists underneath my forehead so you can still hear me while I talk. Good. And what we want now, again, is this heaviness or this tailbone releasing back downwards. I can imagine someone there pressing your pelvis down. And then again, you can breathe into the belly. But this time, because the belly is somewhat supported by the thighs, this pressure moves towards the back body. If you remember the third variation of a breath, where the front body was relatively still, and we move the breath into the back. So that's kind of what we're going here. Last breath. Nice. And then let's come into a tabletop position. And probably the number one exercise you've done for core stability is bird dog, and we're going to go for that. Now we're going to set it up. So some of us, as soon as we get here, we just kind of hang out in our joints. So you can push the earth away a little bit, and you can even touch your belly, touch your lower back to see if you're overarched. You can have a gentle, natural curve, again through the lower back, but you don't need to over round. We want a sense of length here. And then you can bring the left knee to center, but kick the right foot back. One more time, pushing the earth away a little bit. And then only lifting the heel so much that you can keep this neutral pelvic position. So if I extend the leg too high, probably going to move from the spine. So I'm going to keep that relatively contained through the front. You can come up through the fingertips. If you want to extend the arm forward, go ahead. Good. And then just noticing here, there's some balance involved. If over time you feel like you start to arch and hang, think about pressing the hand and the foot into something. Yeah, there's nothing there, but we're imagining that we're pushing something down, and that might puff up the lower back. Sending one more deep breath into the back. And out. Let's do the other side. Left hand down, right knee down. Again, pushing the earth away. with the leg extended. One more time, pushing the earth away. Trying to keep that sense here through the front body being contained, only lifting the legs so much. And if you feel your butt and your hamstrings working, you're doing great. Quite often when we hang, we don't really feel anything in the leg, but when we contain and kick up through the resistance, then you probably feel your body active. Maybe up onto right fingertips or extending the arm forward. Can also always just do the leg or just do the arm and work up to the combination. Good. And let's take 2 breaths into the back body. Inhale. Exhale. And every time you exhale, you can think about hugging the front body in so the back body gets a little bit stronger. Last one. Inhale. And exhale. Awesome. Both hands, both knees down. And you can draw some circles just for a moment to release. Good. And if you come out of the position and you feel like, oh, my back is a little bit, then it probably means you lifted your leg up too high. So maybe only at the beginning comes off of the ground just a little bit. Doesn't have to be hip height. Good. Let's come into a pose called puppy pose. You can widen the knees a little bit and then send the hands forward, releasing the forehead down. If the forehead doesn't come down comfortably, you can also have a block underneath the forehead. And quite often when we just let the pose go, the pelvis does its thing and it tilts, especially for those of you who are bendy or have a tendency to overarch the lower back. So what we're going to do is we're going to inhale here. And as you exhale, pressing the hands into the ground and kind of coming out of that curve. My head is lifting off the floor a little bit. That's perfectly fine. Let's do that a few times. Inhale from overarched. Exhale, pushing the earth away. Coming into a sense of a long spine. Do this a few more times. Inhale, letting everything go, sort of dumping into your joints. And then exhale, push into the ground. Containing the front body. Last one. Inhale. And then exhale, hands push down. Pelvis to neutral. Good. And then you can bring your hands underneath your shoulders. And before we close this practice, let's come into a downward facing dog with the same feeling. So let's tuck the toes under, send the sits bones up and back. Again, some of us who are bendy can sort of just hang out in a downward facing dog. Let's bend the knees quite a bit so we have the feeling that the tailbone moves away and maybe even downward a little bit. I know we always say sit bones up in downward facing dog, but for a nice spacious lower back, you can think about softening the sits bones down, softening through the groins. See if you can keep that same feeling as you start to extend through the legs. So we're creating lots and lots and lots of space through the spine. And instead of the belly hanging, I'm pushing the earth away. Belly button moves towards the spine, and see if you can take 2 breaths with this feeling of lower back, nice and expansive. Almost like you're breathing into the kidneys, and exhale. Last one, inhale. And exhale. Good, lower the knees down. And then let's find a seat however you like to sit. I don't have any props here. I'm just going to come into sitting on my heels. And then you can close your eyes here for a moment and see if you're already sitting in an overarched position. Where's my pelvis? Can I find that same kind of neutral feeling through the spine? And then you can release your hands. And then again, keeping the front body relatively contained. See if you can breathe more presence into the back body. And as you exhale, you can think about squeezing in everything so your spine grows. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, breathing into the whole back side of the body. As you exhaling to lengthen the spine. Good. I know this again counter to what we normally hear. We inhale, lengthen. And exhale, ground. Good. But we can also inhale to puff up the back. And as we exhale, we lengthen. Good. And then I thank you for sharing this little practice. If you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe and let me know if there's any type of content you would like to see here. Thank you.